Pests from Spontaneously Combustible Games is what we're looking at today. It's currently on Kickstarter, and we got to check out a prototype build of the product. Of course, some things will be changing in terms of artwork and components, but you can see what we have before you, the basic idea of the game, in which you are all exterminators, and you're all competing to see who can rid one home of their preferred pest type before anyone else can.
Yes, for some odd reason, instead of setting the entire house on fire, the owners have decided to only pay whoever is the first person to remove their pests.
It's a really very specific problem to have. So everyone's going to get to pick their own exterminator who has their own special rules and abilities, some positive, some negative.
Right, we have 3 set up here. It goes up to 6 and goes down to 2.
Yeah, and you set up the game with tiles. The regular way that you would set it up is everybody would receive their own tiles, and one at a time you decide where you're going to place them. Once you've placed 2 tiles down, you can then decide to place your personal tile, which is where your nest will be, or where the pest's nest will be.
Right, so there's some strategy of trying to lay out the house so that your pests maybe can move or can't move in certain directions, and maybe also try to trip your opponent's way that way.
Right. Maybe you don't want to be next to certain people if you know that they are the kind of player who are going to mess you up.
Right, we just set this up randomly pretty much just to show what it might end up looking like. Because afterwards, once everything's placed, your pest, the queen, which may be a little confusing for certain ones, is put on the board, and then spawn some of the pests around the house.
Yeah, and so on your turn, the first thing you do is roll the queen die, and that determines whether your queen moves in a certain direction and then drops pests, or they might summon pests closer towards them, or they might just drop an extra number right where they are and not move. Then you get to choose a certain number of actions to do. You get 1 movement for free, and don't fall down. And then you can get 2 points to spend however you like. You could do a number of things.
They're all listed on the card here, which makes it very nice because I will not remember them all. But you can do more moving, you can kill pests in your area, drop traps in order to maybe catch either the queen or more pests.
And ultimately your goal, as you said, is to drop your trap, get the queen sealed in it, eliminate all the pests of your color from the board, and seal your nest with the seal token, which stops anything from spawning in there.
And of course, then finally, you can empty your traps, but if it's the queen, you can only do that after doing all the previous actions.
Right.
And you hope to do this before anyone else either does it before you or stops you.
Right.
And to do that, there are actions, such as unsealing the nest, as we mentioned before, or these cards. There are tool cards, I believe.
Toolbox cards.
Toolbox cards.
Like that.
And they have both offensive and defensive things. For example, there is one here that's empty your trap even if you are not in the room. There are cards where you can actually control your own queen on your turn, which can be helpful, or even worse, control your opponent's queen on their turn and really mess with them up.
Yeah, lots of wacky trickery that can occur there. So that's basically the gist of the game. In tone and feel, it really made me think of a multiplayer party game. This may sound crazy, but in a way, something almost like Smash Brothers or Mario Kart. The kind of fun multiplayer party game with like power-ups and items and an arena where you're running around and you're messing with each other's pieces. It's a race, but you're also competing. Well, you're competing in a race too. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. You get that kind of vibe from this.
I definitely get. Yeah, especially when we play with more. We found that you really do want, just like in those games, the more people, because when we did the 2-player, because that's the first time we tried it, it sort of became more of a solo game, and whoever went first almost had a really strong advantage. But when you get like this, a mix up, you're starting to get more of weird interactions and stuff, and also the house tends to be built a little bit fairer, I would say.
Yeah, definitely you want more people. I'd like at least 3 is really going to help, but 5 or 6, for some people it might even be too crazy, but I think that...
Well, I think that's sort of the fun of it then, especially with some of the artwork and cards and stuff.
Yeah, you want that chaos. And like you said about the setup, it definitely, a lot of it is dependent on where people decide to put their pieces. So that's one of the big things that we were talking about, is the layout of the game with the board. You can really do it any way you want. You're supposed to do it one at a time, but we almost kind of think you might want to have a preset layout of some kind, depending on your group and depending on how familiar they are with the game, perhaps. You mentioned the artwork. It is super weird and goofy. Not all of this is final, but it's sort of like, I don't know, somewhere between Rocko's Modern Life and like Dr. Seuss a little bit. even these tiles.
I mean, the queens are some of the best ones. Just looking at these just giant.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how you're not unique, which was definitely something interesting that we realized. Like the green one, for example.
You are unique.
No, you are unique. Sorry. Like the green one actually has 2 traps, and like the blue one has
a trap that can hold up to 9 pests instead of the normal 7. So there is a good number of variation, and you sort of do a. Not drafting, but in turn order, you get to decide which exterminator you want to be. So there's some strategy in picking who you think is the best player.
It is funny because currently our setup, we did choose the most, like if we say the word pest, what people might actually think. Because there are up to 6, and 2 of them, one of them is ghosts, so you can become a ghostbuster.
That's right.
And the other is, the interesting one is people. It's pretty much you are sending them all an eviction notice. Yeah. Even like the avatar forum is literally just a guy in a suitcase with an envelope.
Yeah, so there's definitely a good sense of humor in this game, and a lot of the cards are funny like that as well. So it's got that kind of fun party vibe. Definitely a random, chaotic, luck-based, but not entirely. I mean, the queen's movements are very random.
But the more chaotic allowed you to, I think, still be strategic, but not so much that it just became a landslide.
I'd almost compare it to, it almost feels like Pandemic, if Pandemic were a multiplayer competitive party game.
Actually, I think, yeah, because you have all the different viruses.
Right. So, or Forbidden Island, kind of one of those kinds of things. Maybe more so that because you have the tiles and everything.
Right. And the cards help with a lot with the strategy too. Like there was actually one we were both shocked that's removed 5 from someone's pest pool.
Right, because you can actually be eliminated from the game if all of your pests run out. You're gone.
So you could like just wait for the right moment.
Yeah, you gotta watch out. It can be cutthroat with some of those cards for sure. So if this looks like the kind of game you want to play, it's got some pretty fun stuff going for it, I think. It's a goofy, silly kind of take on the world of extermination.
Yeah, so check out the Kickstarter. We'll have a link down below. Or if you're watching this on the page, you already are.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to see more Kickstarter previews or other reviews and video content, subscribe. Check out our website, rollforcrit.com. We would love to have you as a new friend. Otherwise,
we will not exterminate you.
Yeah. My name is Jonathan Estes.
And I'm Will Keeler. And this has been a Roll for Crit Kickstarter preview.